Hello, everybody. This is Ryan Koki of the Seahawk Recap Show, and welcome to News of the Week, episode 19. How are we all feeling after week 16? Well, as a Seahawks fan, we are in the playoffs, and this is insane to me because we're just there. Seventh seed, last spot in the NFC. Let's see if we can keep this spot because, man, this year has just been a roller coaster of emotions, but I hope you all had a great Christmas for those who celebrated. And let's get into this news of the week episode. So let's start off with the week 16 recap. We start off on Thursday night football with the Rams taking on the Saints. 30-22, Rams win on Thursday night football, keeping their playoff hopes alive and still being second in the NFC West, while the Saints fall to 7-8. The Steelers are up next, and they faced the Bengals, destroying them 34-11. Steelers win it out, and the AFC North battle continues with these two at the bottom, 8-7 for both respective teams. And we get on to the third game, and it's the Chargers versus the Bills. A close one, 24-22. Bills escape with the win there. But honestly, this was a lot closer game than I was thinking it was going to be. 5-10 for the Chargers now. They look to be in a downward spiral. And for the Bills, they're still clinging on to life at 9-6. So we'll see what happens with them. Next up, we have the Jets versus the Commanders, 30-28. Jets win it out. Another very close game, and the Jets could have easily have lost this game. You know, the Commanders could have kicked the field goal and won this game. It was very close, 6-9 for the Jets and 4-11 for the Commanders. Again, a rebuild year for the Commanders. It looks like, I believe, Ron Rivera will be leaving at the end of the season. If he isn't fired, I would be totally shocked. For the Jets, this season hasn't gone to plan. We all know it. We all know that having Aaron Rodgers was going to be a very special time for you guys this season. Hopefully, Aaron Rodgers comes back in 2024, 2025, and has a good season for you guys. Next up, we have the Vikings versus the Lions, 30-24. Thank you to the Lions for winning this game because without this win from the Lions, the Seahawks wouldn't be in the seventh seed. 7-8 are the Vikings and 11-4 the Lions. And we look at the Lions, 30 years, man. 30 years it's taken for the Lions to win the NFC North again. They clinch a playoff berth. And good for them, man. They deserve it. Dan Campbell is a heck of a head coach, and I can't wait to see what he does in the playoffs. For the Vikings, you guys are still in the mix of this. You guys are still fighting for your playoff lives. You just need to hopefully win your next two games. Next up, we have the Texans versus the Browns, and it was a 36-22 win for the Browns, and Joe Flacco keeps on going. 10-5 for the Browns. You know, Joe Flacco has won every game he started, and it's really insane to see that Joe Flacco is having basically a little like resurgence of his career. You know, he was a backup for a very long time. He was on the Ravens, then um went to the Broncos, now is on the Browns, and it's really nice to see uh, that he's working out for the Browns and really showing what he's made of. For the Texans, 8-7, you know, guys, you're still there in the AFC South. The AFC South is so hard to call right now. All the teams are at an 8-7 record, so anybody's game for the AFC South. So just keep pushing, and hopefully you guys can win out. Next up, we have the Panthers versus the Packers. A very, very close game. A little too close for comfort, but the Packers escape with the win 33-30. And man, for the Panthers, you know this story, 2-13, not a good season. Can't wait to see what you guys do in 2024, 2025, because this seems to be like your rock bottom right now. So hopefully you guys will get better for 2024, 2025. For the Packers, 7-8. Again, you guys are right there with the Vikings still in the hunt. I believe you faced the Vikings in week 17. So we'll see what happens with you guys. Next up, we have the Titans versus the Seahawks. It was a 20-17 victory for the Seahawks. And I would highly recommend you go and see this video because this was the Christmas Eve game. And man, to see the Seahawks squeeze this one out and win it was very, very good for us. So I would highly recommend going to the Seahawks game recap playlist and watching that video for my full reaction to this game. Next up, we have the Falcons versus the Colts, and no Desmond Ridder for this game, and it was a 29-10 victory for the Falcons. What does that tell you? That Desmond Ridder is, not being able to use his weapons efficiently, but Taylor Heineke was using Kyle Pitts efficiently. Drake London was getting some catches there. I don't think it's all Desmond Ridder's fault that, Kyle Pitts and Drake London aren't getting open on some of his throws. I just think that Taylor Heineke is being able to overcome the incompetence with Arthur Smith. But good win for the Falcons, 7-8, and for the Colts, 8-7. You guys should be super proud with what you've done here, Colts, because honestly, you guys losing Anthony Richardson, you guys having one of the youngest teams in the NFL, be this close to a playoff spot and to be in the playoffs because you're in the 7th seed in the AFC. So I would be highly proud of your season so far. For the Falcons, you guys just keep on trucking 7-8. You have to contend with the Buccaneers. Who knows where this division in the NFC South will finish until week 18. Speaking of the NFC South, we have the Buccaneers versus the Jaguars, a 3-12 win for the Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield, man. Baker Mayfield has really shown out for the Buccaneers. It's really interesting because you look at him and it was the Browns, then he went to the Rams, now he's in Bucks uniform, he's back there, and this was a prove it deal for him this year. Like it was last year with the Rams, and now they're in talks with potential extension. And I just hope that Baker Mayfield sticks around with the Bucks and leads them to hopefully a playoff run this year, 8-7. So we'll see what happens there. For the Jags, you guys have slipped a little bit. I don't know what's been going on with you guys. You guys currently are not getting into the end zone enough. I know that for sure, but you guys have slipped down and you're at 8-7 now. Everybody in the AFC South is on your heels. Don't lose this because it's your division to lose. So just keep on pushing and hopefully you can get a win in week 17. Next up, we have the Dolphins versus the Cowboys, a 22-20 win for the Dolphins. And man, another close game by 2 points, but the Dolphins make it 11-4. And good to see from the Dolphins, man. Really, really nice to see. I can't wait to see what they do in the playoffs. For the Cowboys, 10-5. You guys are still fighting in the NFC East, but you guys really need to step it up for week 17 because this was a close game, but I think you guys could have won this game. Next up, we have the Bears versus the Cardinals, 6-9 for the Bears now, a 27-16 victory for the Bears. Cardinals, 3-12. Ben, you guys know what you are, Cardinals. You guys are rebuilding. We know what you are. Good try in keeping it somewhat competitive all season long, but the Bears just had your number in that game and won it out. For the Bears, 6-9, man. I didn't really expect you guys to be up here quickly enough because honestly, you have the first overall pick. So why not just win a couple games? Because your spot is secured. Next up, we have the Broncos versus the Patriots. 26-23 victory for the Patriots. And man, this leads to a lot of issues with the Broncos. There's been a lot of drama over the past couple of days about the Russell Wilson contract and him being benched for Jared Stidham for the rest of the season, and I will get to that later. But for the Patriots, good win. You're 4-11, so it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, but you're playing spoiler at the moment, and the Broncos really need to hope that Jarrett Stidham can win the next two games so that they can get a 9-8 record. The Chiefs on Christmas Day versus the Raiders, a 20-14 victory for the Raiders. Man, Chiefs, you're falling a little bit by the wayside at Arrowhead, 9-6 now, and you guys do not look like the same team that's Super Bowl caliber. So you guys need your wide receivers to step up, and that's been a problem all season long. Patrick Mahomes has looked a little bit sluggish, and I think he's going to have a way game in the playoffs, and that's going to be a new challenge for him because he's never had that in his career. We'll see what adversity you guys face in the playoffs. For the Raiders, good win. No one expected you to win, but 7-8, and nice job for beating up on the Chiefs. That's great for you guys. And Antonio Pierce, man, you guys have been on a roll, and maybe Antonio Pierce can be your head coach of the future. We just don't know. He's done a very good job with this team, so maybe he comes back for a season or two, and we'll see what he really has. Next up, we have the Eagles versus the Giants. It was a 33-25 victory for the Eagles, 11-4 now on the season for the Eagles. Nice win. Good job for you guys. I can't wait to see what you guys do in the playoffs. And for the Giants, 5-10, not looking so great, but you know what? You guys were kind of having a bad season to begin with, so hopefully you can just look to 2024-2025 season next year. For Monday Night Football, we have the 49ers versus the Ravens. And this was like a little bit of a preview of a potential Super Bowl matchup, and it was a 33-19 victory for the Ravens on Monday Night Football. This was a geek beating. I don't understand what happened there, but 49ers at 11-4, still taking first seed in the NFC for now, and I think you'll stay like that. And for the Ravens, you're first seed in your conference as well in the AFC. So keep on going, guys. You're 11-4 and 12-3 respectively. You guys look to be the powerhouses of the conferences in the NFL right now. So keep on going, and we'll see how the season finishes out. Week 16 playoff picture, and let's talk about it. As we head into week 17 of the NFL regular season, there are 2 weeks left until we get to the playoffs. This season has been a really entertaining season with a lot of ups and downs, surprises, and upsets along the way. This 2023-2024 season is really hard to predict. For example, Baltimore and the 49ers are top seeds in their both conferences, man. It's insane. But then you look at the rest of the seeding in the playoffs, and it's just honestly a mangled mess. Miami is taking second seed in the AFC with Kansas City behind them in third. AFC South is too close to call right now, but the Jaguars are currently holding fourth. The Cleveland Browns are taking up fifth. Then you got Buffalo at sixth and Indianapolis at seventh in the AFC, rounding up the AFC. It's just a lot of surprising results in this season where you just can't predict what'll happen. All the predictions in the world couldn't have predicted, teams, like the Chiefs and the Bills, two powerhouses in the AFC, going toe to toe with each other and being third and sixth right now in their divisions, respectively. The NFC, though, is even worse in my opinion. You've got Philly at 2, Detroit at 3, winning the NFC North for the first time in 30 years. You've got Tampa Bay in fourth. They're probably going to take the NFC South. Then you've got Dallas at fifth, Los Angeles at sixth, and then Seattle rounding off the playoff picture in seventh for the NFC. It's insane. I think you can't predict what'll happen in the playoffs. I think you'll see maybe fifth and seventh seeds really having major upsets because I think all 14 teams, considering how crazy this season has been with the amount of injuries, could make a shot at going further than we even realize as football fans. Some of them could even probably go to the Super Bowl. I know that's a big stretch, but just there's a lot of surprise here and intrigue. I don't think anyone can predict what's going to happen for these playoffs coming up. Another thing I really wanted to talk about on this episode was the news that came out about Russell Wilson. He is being benched, according to NFL insider Dana Rushini and Adam Schefter. All signs are pointing to Russell Wilson being cut at the end of the season by the Denver Broncos in March. When I heard the news that Russell Wilson will probably be cut by the Denver Broncos after the season, I wasn't really surprised. With all the talk that Sean Payton has had, with all the um a little bit of glimpse into what's going on this season with the Denver Broncos, I'm really not surprised that this is happening. Sean Payton obviously wants to go in a different direction, and now that that he's been brought in, he wants to take more control of the team and bring in players that he actually wants. Remember, Wilson was already under contract by the time they had traded for Sean Payton. And, you know, all throughout the season, we were shown from the offset of the offseason in the first press conference to now, we've seen the two go at it, Russell Wilson and Sean Payton, not being friendly to one another on the sidelines, Sean Payton kind of getting in his face, kind of not really uh, being very kind to a franchise quarterback the way you would probably see it. And he's been trying to undermine Russell Wilson for a while and try to insert his dominance. And now this was just the final straw. And according about this benching, as more information went into it, Russell Wilson did not want to restructure his contract. And Sean Payton came up to him and said, restructure your contract or else you're benched. And because Russell didn't want to do that, he was benched. He found out on apparently the bye week is what Russell Wilson said in an interview. He found that he was going to get benched on the bye week, and I'm very, I just don't know what to say at this point. That's not professional. That's not something you should do. You should ride with your guy and try to be best buds because at this point, you're stuck with the contract. You'll have what, $3 million, I believe, in dead cap space for 2024 when they cut Russell Wilson. So we'll see what happens. For me, I love Russell Wilson, obviously, because I am a Seahawks fan. You can see his jersey right there. Um, and he brought the first Super Bowl to the Seahawks. That's why I love him. He brought the first Super Bowl to the Seahawks right here on in their history. And I've never known a Seahawks team without Russell Wilson being the quarterback. That's just facts. I've never up until this point, up until Geno Smith took over, I've never known anything different. So I really have a soft spot for Russell Wilson. And I don't know what the future holds for Wilson in the NFL, but I'm pretty sure teams will look at him and scoop him up this offseason. The question for me remains, how much will teams want to give him in terms of money and years on his next contract? Because he's already 35 and he's only played for one team, that's the Seahawks, that he has shown success with. His first 2 years in Denver were a stain on his career. And I completely believe that because, first of all, he comes in, signs a new contract with Denver, and Nathaniel Hackett and him aren't on the same page. They have one of the most dreadful seasons that I have ever seen. And then Russell Wilson bounces back this year and he has like what, 3,000 passing yards, I think like 29 touchdowns or something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't have the stats in front of me, but that's a pretty decent season, all things considered, coming off of a year where you have two new head coaches and two new schemes you have to learn. But I guess Russell Wilson's future is undecided. The final thing I wanted to talk about this episode was coaching hot seats. And this is the NFC, and these are my takes. So these are my opinions. Don't try to think that I'm actually being analytical with this. This is just my take. So One coach that I want to see on the hot seat is Arthur Smith. 7-8 for the Falcons, and reasoning for this: unable to utilize star players in key moments, which is leading to Falcons fans begging for Arthur Smith's removal as head coach. And I completely agree with this. Throughout the season, we've seen what's been happening with the NFC South. One of these teams is going to get this playoff spot no matter what. And at this point, Arthur Smith has so much talent available to him. He has Kyle Pitts, he has BJ Robertson, he has Drake London, who's a very good wide receiver, and he's just not using them. You're not seeing them being used in an efficient manner. And seeing star players on the field with young talent, there's a bunch of star players on that team that are young and can develop. But with Arthur Smith under center and in control of the head coaching, do you think he's going to utilize him? No, he hasn't been using them all season. Like BJ Robertson was touted as one of the best running backs coming out of this draft, and he hasn't been utilized in the way that he needs to in order to be effective. So I'm right there with Falcons fans. I think there needs to be a change. Another change I think there needs to be is the NFC South is going to have a big exodus of head coaching jobs for themselves, because I believe Dennis Allen, 7-8 for the Saints. His reasoning: I just think the team needs a full rebuild, and getting rid of your head coach is a good way to start. Dennis Allen has shown me over the past little bit that Alvin Kamara has been their best wide receiver. Again, another guy who can't utilize talent. You've got Chris Olave there. Like, Chris Olave is one of the best wide receivers I saw last year, coming out of his rookie season. I think he had 1,000 yards last year. So what's going on there? You guys thought you were one piece away from being a playoff contender. Well, you guys are getting beaten out by the Buccaneers right now, and you're 7-8. And Derek Carr has not been a very good experiment for you guys. So I don't know what's going on. And with the team as old as it is, a lot of the core pieces are still there. Michael Thomas is still there. Demario Davis. I don't understand what this team is doing, and I think it needs to go into a full rebuild because fresh you need fresh people in there. You need to make sure that the old guard is going out with the old guard and in with the new. And right now, I think Dennis Allen will get caught in the crossfire in that, and will just they'll completely tear it down. And it comes from the head coaching position lower. Moving on to the Carolina Panthers, Chris Tabor is their interim head coach right now, 2-13, and reasoning: he's just a placeholder. Interim head coaches, I don't think, in my experience, I don't think they get a shot. When they're interim head coaches, like Jeff Saturday was the interim head coach of the Colts last year, and he did a decent enough job, but he was not eventually hired by the Colts. And I think that's the same thing here, is that Chris Tabor will stay on the team, and then he'll be ousted and will return to his original duties, hopefully for the Carolina Panthers. But they just want to see who their run of the table will be in 2024, 2025 when it comes to head coaches, and they'll make a decision there. Next up, I think Ron Rivera is gone in the NFC. 4-11. He's got new ownership on this team, and I think, out of respect for Ron Rivera, they're going to keep him for the rest of the season, but reevaluate who they have at the coaching position. I think, honestly, after this season, Eric Bieniemy, the former offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs, the guy that won them their two Super Bowls, will be the head coach of the Commanders next season. For the AFC, I think Bill Belichick is going to be leaving the Patriots after 2 decades of coaching and GMing for them. He's 4-11, and the reasoning: I think ever since becoming GM and head coach of the New England Patriots in 2020, the Patriots have really suffered. There's been a lot of rumors that he could be traded this offseason as well from NFL insiders. So not only is there rumors that he could be traded, it's not confirmed per se, but it looks like all signs are pointing him being moved on from New England. And to be honest, 2 decades, that's a long time to be head coach. And I think Bill Belichick, honestly, he is the greatest head coach of all time, but I don't think he's a very good GM. I don't think his personnel decisions are great. And I think that's why they've suffered so much after losing Tom Brady once Bill Belichick became a GM. So if he goes to another place, whether that place is the NFC or another AFC team, I think you give Bill Belichick the head coaching role and you bring in a GM just so that you can moderate what's being used in the organization and not giving the head coach too much power and influence over the organization because it clearly just hasn't worked out for the Patriots ever since making that change. Next up, we got the Bills and Sean McDermott, 9-6. Reasoning for the past 3 years, this Bills team has been regarded as a Super Bowl contender. This year has kind of shifted that narrative, and I wonder if the Bills don't go on a deep run. I believe that there will be a head coaching change just to spice up the room. This season in particular has been excruciatingly painful for the Bills Mafia because remember they fired Ken Dorsey and things are not looking to get better anytime soon. They're still struggling offensively. Josh Allen is throwing picks left and right. He is really taking a step back this year. And I think, honestly, if you can't get the offense on track with the amount of injuries you had on defense, I think Sean McDermott might be leaving this team just because of this literal implosion that's happened. I know they're 9-6, so it doesn't look too bad, but considering the amount of games that they've had that they've almost lost, um, they probably shouldn't have the record they have, to be completely honest with you. And I think it might be time for a change in Buffalo. Next up is Mike Vrabel, 5-10, and his reasoning. Titans are kind of at a crossroads at the moment between fully rebuilding or rebuilding on the fly. They will lose Derrick Henry this offseason. I think everybody when they were talking about Derrick Henry, when you're talking about Derrick Henry this year, I think he's leaving. I think this is his final season in a Tennessee Titans uniform. And if they lose Derrick Henry, I think Tennessee will tear it down to the studs and just go through a full rebuild. And unfortunately, a consequence of doing a full rebuild would be literally changing the culture. And I think Mike Bravel will go along with that. The last one on this list is Giff Smith, 5-10. Same reason as the Carolina Panthers. Giff Smith is just a placeholder until the Chargers can evaluate who they want to run as their head coach for next year. I think that's just how it goes. I think that's how the NFL goes. Usually, interim head coaches don't get the head coaching gig. Usually, they're just placeholders for the next season until they can figure out who they want in the offseason. Anyways, this is it for News of the Week, episode 19. And I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like and please consider subscribing if you really liked it and would like to see any more future content from me. I will see you on Monday for the Seahawks game recap. Seahawks versus Steelers on week 17. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week, and I will see you then. Go Hawks, go! And let's see if we can get to 9-7 on the year